Wealth is not just about making money. It is about managing, multiplying, sustaining, and handling, the money and everything that comes into the business wisely. Most struggling entrepreneurs think about money mainly from the perspective of spending, while the focused and determined entrepreneurs think about plowing back their profit for the growth of the business. Successful or success-driven entrepreneurs think differently. They ask, how can this money grow? How can this money create stability? How can this money strengthen the business? What does money mean to you in your business? Because some entrepreneurs see money from an emotional perspective, but successful entrepreneurs see money from the strategic viewpoint, where money is judiciously utilized to grow the company, to grow the business, instead of having a consumer perspective of money, where both the profit and the capital is depleted through careless and extravagant spending. When it is not time for them to begin to spend, they begin to spend. And they're spending the capital, not the profit. Even the profit is not supposed to be, spent completely. And that difference changes everything. Most struggling entrepreneurs think about money mainly from the perspective of spending, while the focused and determined entrepreneurs think about plowing back their profit for the growth of the business. They practice delayed gratification, where they leave their personal pleasure until when the business can stand on its own and gain respect from its customers. The struggling entrepreneurs, however, think only of how much they can spend on frivolities, how much they can show off, how much pressure they can temporarily escape by spending more money to cover up for the present, predicaments. But successful or success-driven entrepreneurs think differently. They ask, how can this money grow? How can this money create stability? How can this money strengthen the business? This is why two people can make the same amount of money and still end up in completely different situations in the area of growth and success and sustainability and stability. One spends to impress, the other invests to expand. One focuses on appearance, the other focuses on sustainability. And over time, the result becomes obvious because, whatever you do, you will eventually get the result. Obviously, the result will be different with one progressing and the other retrogressing. Other not growing, just stunted. If you look carefully at many businesses that collapse, you will notice that the problem was not always lack of income. It is usually due to misplaced priority. Money may be entering the business, but the financial thinking of the owner of the business was weak, unaligned, and probably, all about spending and spending on, efficiencies, That's what we call it these days. They just want to do efficiencies. This must look right. This must look like this. And then before you know it, the profit and the capital is going little by little. That takes the company nowhere, Efficiencies take the company nowhere, but only gives it euphoria of the moment, which leads to eventual collapse. Too much unnecessary spending is usually a result of poor planning and mindless handling of cash flow. No thought is given to reinvestment strategy, and none is given to financial discipline. This eventually leads to stunted growth and downward trend for such a business. This is why many entrepreneurs remain under pressure financially, even when they are selling with relative profit. They keep spending unnecessarily and they remain under pressure when they could actually stay afloat. Because revenue alone does not create stability. Application of wisdom and prudence is what does. Successful entrepreneurs understand that money is a tool, not just for survival, but for the growth. And that is why they practice delayed gratification, like I mentioned earlier on. That is why they also think long term. They're not thinking about the present and the efficiencies of the moment. They concentrate on building the business consistently until it meets their pictured aim of stability. They do understand the importance of readjusting, reinvesting into the existing system, and restructuring. They systematically brand while learning and training on the job. Sustainability and succession plan is always on their focus. They know something important, that a business that cannot manage money and expenses properly will struggle to survive. Yeah, they know that. Emotional spending just like emotional eating, can become a serious health hazard to the business. New business starters needs to taper their lifestyles to allow for increase, growth, and stability in their budding businesses. It should not be that the moment that a small success appears, unnecessary pressure begins in the area of new entrepreneur trying to look successful, trying to prove that there is growth through external appearance only. This only slowly eat up into the fabric of the company or of the business, and it starts to become financially weak from inside out. Smart entrepreneurs need to avoid this kind of trap. It's a trap. They should know that every money and that enters the business is not to be personally spent on their frivolities, and they understand that discipline creates freedom and joy later. An entrepreneur should understand that money follows value. The more valuable your business becomes, the stronger your business and financial opportunities get. In this, I'm saying something about you wanting to get a new supplier. They want to see how much you sell per month. They want to see who buys from you. They want to see where you started from and where you are. And then they can, key in and put money or put products into your company. But if they know where you started and where you are now, when you started, you were blooming. Where you are now, you are taking a downward trend. They won't want to invest into your business, and not getting more investor into your business does something not so positive to you. So instead of being obsessed with money only or spending money only, you should focus heavily on improving value, systems, and customer experience. Let your customers, sing the song to the whole world, and let them begin to come to experience what they have experienced. They also focus, that is the good entrepreneurs, they focus on improving positioning, because they understand that sustainable finance is usually connected to sustainable value. So if you want your business to grow financially, your thinking about money must change through an intentionally change in your mindset. Stop thinking only about income. Start thinking about stewardship. Can if you are asked, to actually check yourself, can you sincerely smile and say, I've done well? If you cannot, then there should be an inward look at your expenses and the way you handle money. Start thinking about sustainability. Start thinking about long-term stability. Start thinking about succession. What you have at hand. Is this something you can hand out to somebody and they will say, thank you, daddy, thank you, mommy, or thank you, our MD, or our chairman, or whoever? Can they say thank you to you? Because wealth is not just about making money. It is about managing, multiplying, sustaining, and handling the money and everything that comes into the business wisely. This is the 18 of the 21-day business mindset challenge. And tomorrow we are stepping into a conversation that silently affects many entrepreneurs. I hope that you have been following us. I hope that you are enjoying the 18 days so far. It is about how comparison can, the next one is about how comparison can slowly destroy your business. We want you to keep following us. Have you subscribed? Subscribe. Like this particular one and share it. We'll be glad to see you on day 19. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.